выключить?
Ну, просто сейчас. Ну, все, вот сейчас включим.
И вот так оставить.
Да. Ну, если говорить так вот прямо, то, в принципе, должно быть не очень громко.
Окей. So you'll tell me when we start, right? And I hope everyone leaves their laptops. Okay. I'll be slow. Some English practice. Tuesday English practice segment. Где тут кнопочка? and ask me anything you feel like. Because I guess the story is pretty unusual. I'm going to be telling you how the girl in a wheelchair from Dnipropetrovsk city became world's first runway model in a wheelchair. So I'd love to invite you to imagine Dnipropetrovsk city, like 30 years ago, a room with a wallpaper on which you could see rails and trains and cows. And there is a sofa in the middle of the room. And on the sofa there is a girl. And she is reading a huge book encyclopedia about different kind of professions. And she's wondering who she will be, who she will become, what profession she should choose, what's going to be her passion in life. So that girl is me, and I was wondering about that question like from the very, very beginning. And I think here I'm around 8 years old on the right side, and I guess on the question who I want to be, I was answering a bunny. But you know, then I was asking that more deeply and more seriously. Usually when people see someone in a wheelchair, they might have a question like, what did happen? And I would like to clear it up right from the beginning. So I had a birth injury due to doctor's mistake. So when the kids usually make the first steps, I was making the first wheels. And so I never walked. And you know, I would love to, I guess, tell something about my parents because I'm incredibly grateful to them. They were teaching me to be independent right from the beginning. Just a quick story about, you know, when I was like 7 years old, I would come to my father and I'd say, hey Dad, I want an ice cream, could you buy me an ice cream? And he would be like, okay, here's the money, here's the lady, you go, you buy. I'm like, oh, Dad, I don't want to, you know, I was scared because for this 7 years old girl, like, go take money, talk to some strange lady. And so it was, you know, I remember how I was mad at him when I was a kid. But later on, like right now, I completely realized that I'm incredibly grateful that my parents were teaching me to be independent right from the beginning. They had some troubles about that because I think one of the most important things in life to be able to ask yourself questions and to be able to give yourself an honest answers. So thanks to my parents, I went to regular public school, which was completely inaccessible. So it didn't have any ramp or anything. But we were fine. I had a great group mates, and I was starting from the first grade. And environment in the school was kind of easy because we were on the first floor, even though there was a few steps, still, you know, it was fine. But later on, I was turning around 16 and I was wondering, so, okay, where am I gonna be studying? Who I really wanna be in this life, what I wanna achieve, where is my passion? And as usually, as you know, for someone in a wheelchair, everyone would be like, so, okay, you're 16, you're probably going to university to study sports. You want to be a sportsman, right? And I'm like, I don't really feel like it. You know, I've tried table tennis, not my thing. I've tried swimming, not my thing. And I never felt like doing it for the rest of my life. And, you know, Sports University was the only accessible university in my city, which has a ramp. But I was like, that's ridiculous that you should become someone just because that one single university has a ramp. No, that's not how it works. That's not for me. So I came to my parents and I said, okay, I want to be a psychologist because my explanation at the years of 16 was I want to understand people. Right now, I think there was something about I want to understand myself. And I came to my parents and they said, all right, so, but you know, girl, that the faculty of psychology is on the 4th floor with no elevator, just steps. And you would have to go there every single day. And I was like, okay, so, and I asked my parents, so how are we gonna do this? And they were like, we're gonna be able to drive you to university every day, or to ask someone like a driver to do that. But what's gonna be going on inside of the building? Well, you would have to take care of this. And you imagine faculty of psychology. So basically there are like 90 people and 10 of them guys, usually like 8 girls, only girls. And from the first day, I remember how when the lectures finished, I called my mom and I said like, okay, you know, I gotta be doing something. I need to go downstairs. And she was like, okay, so that's your first day. Go and ask your group mates for the help. And I asked, and they were like, okay, fine, so how you do that? And I explained it like 1,000 times in my life. And with the first guy who said, yes, sure, we became later on best friends, and we were sitting on the same table during the next 4 years. And right now I'm joking because he became strong and handsome, and I'm saying that he needs to pay me money because he didn't have to go to the gym during 4 years of studying. He was just helping me go downstairs and upstairs every day. So, you know, I'm still waiting for my bill. And, but honestly, of course, it was sometimes pretty difficult, especially those moments when you have to go to the university, you have to go upstairs, and then, like, teacher doesn't show up, or he shows up and does something like, and it's not interesting, and you're like, oh my God, why did I use all this time to come here to like get nothing? So there were a lot of frustration moments, but you know, coming back, you know, so I was studying psychology and thinking still about what I want to do with my life. As a lot of students, I was like, of course, when I graduate, I'm going to dedicate my life to the profession I chose in university. And I remember how we were reading the statistic, like 70% people don't do that. So if they study something, they never go into that profession to the rest of their lives. And I remember how me and my friends, we were like, no, we're going to be in those 30. We're going to dedicate our lives to that profession which we chose to study. Well, it didn't happen, as you can see. So no, I'm also in those 70%. But about modeling, you know, I always loved to be, no, that wouldn't be truth if I say I always loved to be in front of the camera. I remember how the first time when my mom bought a camera and she started to make pictures of me. So you could see those pictures. There's no Photoshop. I'm pretty young here, like around 50 years old. And we just enjoyed it. We were just having fun. And because, you know, I needed some pictures for my social network. So I was like, Mom, make some pictures. And we just loved doing it. I never felt that it's going to be something bigger in the future. We just had fun. But one day, now I'm going to be telling you like a very fashionable story, which usually a lot of models say. So they say how I get noticed. So yeah, that's, you know, like if you open up biography of a lot of models, you're going to read something pretty similar. I was sitting alone in the cafe, having my lunch. And there was a lady in the different corner of the room. She came to me and she said like, oh, you know, you're so beautiful. I would love to have a photo shoot with you. And I was like, oh, free professional pictures for my new Instagram. Whoa, so cool. Of course I said yes. And she was like, okay, let's meet like next week. And we met. And I just felt so great with being with a, she was a stranger to me. I never met her before. We weren't friends or anything, but that atmosphere which was during the shoot, we had so much fun. We were like choosing what the lights, what the, you know, we had some very simple makeup, but then I was waiting for the pictures, and that's my first professional photo shoot pictures. And it came out good. You know, I started to post it online, and people were like saying, so, oh, you're a model, you know, like a regular compliment for the girl. And I was like, well, maybe I mean, I did enjoy it. It was really fun. I would love to do it more, not just one shoot in the park. And I've started to Google. I was like, so if there is any model in the wheelchair in the world, is there? And I've started to be Googling, and I didn't found any, but I found one example which led to the dream. And this example of amazing double amputee Amy Miles, she was a Paralympic, amazingly beautiful woman. She was invited to be on the Runway Show of one of the best and one of the, I think he's genius, British fashion designer, Alexander McQueen. He invited Emily to be one of the leading models in his runway show in 1919. He created this, I think, very beautiful legs for her. And when I was looking at that fashion show, well, do you agree with me? Does that look beautiful? Yeah? I mean, when I saw that, I was like, oh my God, she looked so appropriate to the runway show. You know, you couldn't, can you see like she's disabled? Like, or tell that she's some girl with disability? I mean, she's just a beautiful woman, right? And I felt, well, there should be a runway show with the model in a wheelchair where everyone would be looking at and seeing, first of all, just a beautiful woman. And then thinking like, oh, wow, does she have a disability? Oh, I didn't know, wow, it doesn't look like it. So that's how I've started to have a dream about making the runway show with the model in the wheelchair, but not that just she would be just wheeling on the runway. So, you know, after searching and reading all of that, I came up with the idea that I want to be a model. And I came to my mom and I said like, okay, so how to become a model? She was like, I don't know, well, what does models do, how they start? Probably like, I don't know, send your portfolio to the agencies. Well, that was a wise idea. And of course I was really modest. I chose top 10 model agencies in the world. And in my pretty broken English back then, I wrote some message about like, hi, my name is Alexandra Kudas. I'm from Ukraine, Dnipropetrovsk. I guess they never heard about that city before, but here's my photos and I would love to work with you. So no one was replying, but then one letter came to me and I was so happy because there was a modeling agency which worked before with Naomi Campbell in London. And they wrote me a pretty long letter. They said like, we loved your photos and you're really very beautiful, but unfortunately we are afraid to tell you that we won't be able to work with you because we think the market isn't ready. If we sign you as a model, we don't think that we will be able to find any clients which would work with a girl in a wheelchair. And I remember how when I told it to my parents, they were like, oh, don't be sad that they said no. And I'm like, they didn't say no. They said not now. Because they didn't say never. They said market isn't ready yet. And I was like, okay, yeah, it's not ready, so I'm going to be doing other stuff with my life because there are so many things which I want to do. I started to learn project management. I was teaching English. I was keep searching for that big passion in life because I still wasn't really sure what that going to be. But everything changed. I guess there were like 2 points of changing. First, when I graduated and I got my bachelor degree in psychology. And I was like, okay, so now I'm gonna work, right? I'm gonna get a job and be a psychologist because we thought, like most of the students of psychology faculty, we thought like, of course, when we're gonna graduate, or everyone is gonna be just so happy to hire us because we're so awesome. Or we are just all gonna open up our own practice and be a psychologist and everyone's gonna come to us because again, we are so awesome. But the real world was more complicated than it looked like when we were studying. So when I graduated, I went to my first interview and, you know, just to explain to you how I was usually going around the city, I had my personal driver. I had multiple personal drivers in my life. So, I'm kind of good at being HR just because I was hiring personal drivers since I was like 14 years old. And that was the moment when I came to my first interview, being working as a psychologist. And they were like, okay, you're great. We like you. We would like to hire you. But the work was in different parts of the city. And I asked about the salary. And of course, they were willing me to pay something like that. Usually, people pay to someone who just graduated, right? And I realized that what I'm going to be doing at the end of the month, I'm going to be taking this money, I'm going to be doing this, and giving this money to my driver because that's going to be his salary. And I just realized it's probably not how it's going to work. The office job wasn't for me at that moment because I wasn't that level of the specialist, so I just graduated. And I've started to be learning other stuff. I remember how my father really wanted me to be IT specialist. So I even finished QA courses. I didn't like it at all. And I felt so boring. I felt like killing myself during all the lectures. And I was like, oh my God, how people do that. But I didn't get good marks at the end. I even applied for one job. I remember how I came to them. They gave me a test, some task. I've done it. I sent it to them. They said like, oh, I'm so sorry, but we're not ready to hire you. I was like, oh, that's such a shame. Oh my God, that's such a shame. So I called my dad and I said, I tried, but seems it's not mine. So sad. So I just was keep doing photo shoots time to time, searching for what I really want to do with my life, till the moment when everything changed. When sometimes when you have a dream, and it's just a dream, especially if the dream is to create something which doesn't exist in the world. So you feel like, well, one day maybe. But when it was January 2015, I read the news. And about the pretty pictures, how I was doing photo shoots during searching the passion. And I read the news about how in New York there was the first model in the wheelchair on the runway. So basically someone lived my dream, someone did it. And I was so happy when I read it. I was like, oh my God, someone did it. So let me take a look, what the pictures, how does it look like? And then I saw the picture and I was reading comments, and one of the people said, oh, well, of course the United States is an incredibly tolerant country, but don't you feel like that wheelchair and fashion isn't really a good fit? And I was like, they are spoiling my idea. No. They're doing it wrong. They're doing it in that way that everyone can think that wheelchair and the modeling is not a good fit. So I was mad. And I've started, well, first of all, I realized, okay, someone is interested in the topic. That's so cool. Second of all, I realized I want to act because I can't see how someone is saying, okay, fashion and the wheelchair doesn't fit together. So I got an invitation right at that moment. I started to sending my portfolio to different agencies again, and I got an invitation to the Runway Show in Rome, in Italy. But there was just like a week to prepare for that, and I realized that I don't have a visa, and we weren't before like visa-free. So I called them and I said, I'm afraid I won't be able to make it just because of the documents. And they said like, oh, well, we're so sorry, but there's nothing we can do about it. So I thought, okay, I got an invitation in Rome, and something was happening in New York City. So why not to try to make this runway show in Kyiv, right? We have a fashion week. I knew no one. I had no idea how it works. I just took a list of different designers, which I liked, and I started to make calls. I guess it was incredibly funny. First of all, I didn't know how to, when you're a girl, 20 years old, in a wheelchair, it's kind of, there was not a model in Ukraine. It was emotionally pretty difficult for me to call them and say like, hey, I'm a model in the wheelchair, let's do a runway show. So I put on the first place like, let's do a runway show, diversity runway show. It's gonna be so beautiful, it's gonna be great. Let's just do it. And then I was like, oh, by the way, if you need a model, I'm a model. So I was calling to different designers. I guess they were all really surprised because I don't think they get such calls every day. They were saying me no. Like, they were like saying me no, but kind of question no, like, whoa, okay. So I called to a bunch of different designers until one of the owners of Ukrainian Fashion Week, Vladimir Nicheparuk, wrote me a message in Facebook, and he said like, well, I've heard you're interested in coming to Ukrainian Fashion Week. We would like to invite you to come to us as a hostess. Wow, I was like, that's not what I'm, that's not really what I want, but that was like a ticket in, my way in. I knew no one, and I thought like, okay, so I'm gonna go there and hunt for different designers. So that's what I've done. I came to Ukrainian Fashion Week. That's one of the first photos, when it's the guests doing the photos there. I remember how insecure I felt first. If you ever been to Ukrainian Fashion Week, when you come there, people look really fancy. I don't know, like they're much more higher than you. But usually it's not true. They're nice people, especially if you ask them, where is the free wine? I know where is the free wine. Everyone loves you, we become friends. But the first feeling is like, I felt scared, of course, because I knew no one, and I just knew that I need to find a designer. That was the goal. I remember how I was going through it. I don't really tell it to people, but I would like to share it with you. That I remember how I was walking through those different, the big place of Ukrainian Fashion Week, and telling myself, I'm on the cover of the Vogue magazine. I'm on the cover of the magazine. Okay, now kind of like just trying to make myself feel more confident to be able to talk to designers. I had a list, like a short list of the designers who I thought is one of the most open-minded. And one of on that list was Andretan. I'm not sure if this name really tells you something, but that's one of the most famous Ukrainian fashion designers. And I felt like he's one of the most open-minded one. So I told to other girls, so if you see Andretan, just call me, I'm gonna try to talk to him. And one of the girls came to me and she said like, I think he's coming, I think he's there. So I, breathe in, breathe out. I came to him and I said like, hello, my name is Alexandra Kudus. You're Andretan. I would love to work with you. Let's create a runway show. He stopped me for a second. He said like, I'm so sorry, honey, but I'm not Andretan. I'm Andrei. And I was like, okay, whatever you want to be called. So Andrei. And I just kept my speech because, it took me some confidence to just come. And I was like, you're not going away until I finish. So I finished my speech about how it's important to create a runway show. And then he looked at me and he said like, dear, I'm so sorry, I'm really not Andretan. I'm not a fashion designer. But my name is Andrei Saremsakov. I'm a fashion photographer. And I would love to work with you. Let's create a project. That meeting was on the first day of Ukrainian Fashion Week. I remember how when I came back on that first day home, I felt like, well, there's, like I didn't meet any designers. This is a disaster. Like nothing, important happened. But then at the end of those 5 days, I actually realized that first meeting was one of the key points into my career later on. So Andrei we did a project together. We called it, that's Andrei, by the way, on the left. And we did a project together which called Break Your Chains. I just choose 2 of my favorites photos from there, but you can Google it and find some of it online if you like. And I remember that we had a presentation of this exhibition in Museum of Kiev. It was really beautiful. A lot of people came, and that's how in Ukraine people first time started to be talking about, media started to be writing about the girl in a wheelchair doing a modeling project. And then story, so we did this project. It was great. I had no idea what to do next. But, usually when you really want something and work hard for it, and when you already reach the point you have no idea what to do, you get lucky, something good happens. So I still want to buy a bottle of champagne to this someone who told me, if you want to be a model, you should sign up for Instagram. So I did sign up for Instagram. I started to post pictures there. And then in August 2015, also what I've done besides posting their pictures, I left my email right there. I didn't know why. I just felt like, if someone would ever want to contact me, I think they would need an easy way to do that. And I got a letter. It was from the journalist. She was from New York City, and she said, I'm really interested in telling the story about the model with a disability. Could you please tell us yours and some pictures? So we had a phone call for around, I think, 15 minutes or so. It was really interesting, and I asked where it's going to be published. She said, well, I have no idea. We're an agency, so we're just going to be selling this article, and whoever buys it, they buy it. It's like, okay. And, usually some people sometimes say, there was a moment of their life when they woke up famous. So on the 1st September of 2015, there was such a moment in my life. I woke up famous because the Daily Mail bought the article about me, one of the leading British newspaper. They've done it not just in online version, but also in the printed one. And that was just like a snowball. I woke up, and it felt like the whole Ukraine woke up with the thought, oh my God, we have a model in a wheelchair about British newspaper is talking about her. So I've started to be getting calls from media around the world, from all of the Ukrainian media. First it was leading channels, and that was really funny that 2 weeks after, Dnipro channels called me. They were like, oh, we got the news. Oh my God, she's living here. Okay, I guess we should do a call. Everyone, was telling me that, okay, right now it's gonna be easy. You got noticed, because I was getting letters from all around the world. They were really inspiring for me. One of the letters was from the mother of the girl 6 years old. She also uses a wheelchair, and she told me they're from Mexico, and they told me, when we read about you, how you became a model and being a model in Ukraine, we felt like my girl, she said to me that right now I more believe that I can be anyone. I can become anything I want in my life. And that was one of the most inspiring things for me, that, I was just doing what I loved, and then suddenly for someone, it became like an inspiration. I remember how, again, everyone was saying, now you're going to be getting campaigns, calls from different brands, contracts, because that's what usually models do, right? During the next week, I had 10 appointments for different interviews because everyone was interested in the story, and 0 contracts, campaigns, or calls from brands. So media loved it, but no one from the market was calling me. But I knew that this was, all this media attention, I've started just using it. I've started to reaching out to more higher level photographers and getting more higher level photos. And so, yeah, Huffington Post also wrote, because there was a big splash. I've started just to be working with a lot of different photographers, trying to organize a lot of different photo shoots as much as I could. Writing to brands, still keep writing to the designers. But nothing was really coming out of it. There were beautiful shoots, some of them were really experimental for me, but nothing was really working out, and I realized that no matter how amazing you are, how superhero you are, you need a team. You need someone behind you. You need someone to be with you to go through this way. And I realized that I can't be doing this on my own anymore. I've started to be writing to the modeling agencies again, but already with a different story, with a bigger portfolio. And well, actually it was like 4 years later from the first letters. I was getting just rejection letters, nothing more. And I've started to feel like, okay, maybe I'm just hitting the wall and nothing will be working out. Until, again, I just got a message on Facebook from the guy, his name is Blake, he's American. And Blake was just like, oh, I've read about you online. You have such an amazing story. And I would love to talk to you. I was so sad. I think I felt kind of depressed at that moment. And we started to communicate, and he was like, so I saw how many photo shoots you've done. I guess you have a big team behind you with who you're working. And I was like, well, everything what I've done, I've been doing by myself, and I don't really have anyone. And he was like, oh my God, seriously? How did you manage all of those interviews, all of that media? I was like, well, I didn't, unfortunately, I couldn't find anyone to represent me. Blake also never had any experience in fashion world, but he had passion for talents. And he was like, I would love to be your manager. But I'm like, you also don't know anything about fashion. He's like, well, I know how to use LinkedIn. And what we've started to do is that it was his idea, and I think, well, now 2 years later, I can say that he's my best friend, and he's the person who believed in me in those moments when I stopped to believe in myself. So we just started to add people on LinkedIn one by one. We achieved like different So, there were moments when we were like writing to the CEO, and we felt so excited. There was a lot of projects which could happen, people were interested in, but usually for them, one of the stopping point was like, oh, you're from Ukraine, so you're far away and you don't have a work visa, do you? And then kind of the conversation would go nowhere. One of the project which didn't happen, but we really wanted to make it, is that, can you imagine that right now, like 2018, but still Vogue magazine, one of, like the biggest iconic fashion magazine, still they never published a single picture of a model in a wheelchair in their magazine. And I found fashion photographer who worked for Vogue Mexico and a few other Vogue magazines. And he told me, I would love to work with you. I will be able to come to Kyiv with my team. We won't take any money. We don't need any money. Only one thing what we need from you is to get an agreement from magazines in Ukraine that these pictures will be published. Well, in the magazines like Elle or Vogue or Officiel. So I wrote to all of them. I found contacts. I reached to the editors. But all of them were saying me the same thing as I've heard already so many times, that market isn't ready. That the readers, for some reason, they think won't understand the concept of a model in a wheelchair in the Vogue magazine. So that's Blake. And we met. because before we were just communicating online, but we met last year when I was in New York City. So what we were doing after that fail with the Vogue idea, we again kind of reached the point we didn't know what to do more. And then one of the letters was from man Maurizio Oscara. He is the executive in some fashion agency. He's Italian but works in Ukraine for a really long time now. He gave me a call and he said, I think what you're doing is really great. Do you need any help? I'm like, well, actually, I'm looking for a designer. I was still looking for a designer. And by that moment, I already met a few Ukrainian designers who were like, we are interested in this. We would like to do something with you. But one of the biggest problem was that, I was telling them, I don't want to just roll on the runway. We need to make a performance. We need to make something spectacular, I don't know. And for that, I knew that I need a designer who has a vision for this. So most of the designers with who I talked, and they kind of liked the idea, but they still didn't know how to do that. So Maurizio told me, I think I know someone who would be a good fit for you. And on the 5th of November, on my birthday, which I think is very symbolic, I met with the Fyodor Vazanov in cafe here in Kiev. And right from the beginning, he was, when we were talking, it was not about should we do this, how people will accept it, will people like it or not, is it okay to have a girl in a wheelchair on the runway? It was nothing about that. We were just discussing, okay, so how are we gonna do this? And for the next 2 months, me and Fyodor was on the phone talking about, how are we gonna do this, add this, split that. He was calling me. Fyodor is amazingly cute. And, if you have a chance, go to his showroom. He usually spends some time there with the champagne, so you would definitely enjoy it. We became kind of, really close to each other during the time when we were preparing a show. And besides doing the runway, we've decided to do something else. I met a director, his name is Denis, and we were discussing to create actually a social project. But during the discussion, Denis told me that he's really interested in fashion. And I was like, so maybe we could make something like a fashion video? And he said yes, let's gonna try. And then we met all three of us, Denis, designer, Fyodor, and we started to discuss, so maybe we can create a fashion video and show it right before the runway and make it a whole story. And today I would like to share with you this video because I'm afraid you haven't seen it yet, which is a big shame. And you're gonna feel a little bit how the whole show started. So here we go. Is the music there? You had such serious faces when you were watching that. Well, did you like? Yeah. Oh, thank you. Well, I was not just, when we were organizing it, I was involved in every single part of the production. I found the composers because the music was produced specially for the video, with no budget, by the way. With music was produced specially for the video. I found the stylist, the makeup artist, and you know, sometimes because I was so used to organize most of my shoots, you know, sometimes when everything is done, the light is here, the people are ready, I'm like, okay, where's the model? Oh, yeah, it's me. So, okay, we forget about how all the crew should work. Now we're just me and camera and we're having fun. Because I think in whole my modeling career, just around 10–15% was being really in front of the camera. All of the other work that just involved a lot of different skills. So that was the video, and then that was the show. When we were discussing how we're gonna make it, the photo created a special chair for me, which was really tall, and I could sit on there. Well, I guess it looked like a little bit like a queen style. It was held by 4 men during the runway. It's the second picture, and the idea and the vision was that my hero, like I was someone who created this world with what was happening on the runway. I had a really long dress. The dress was as long as the runway. And what I had to do is that I had to hold my dress and like push it to myself every time when another model was coming by. And it meant like time is passing because my character was someone who created this world on the runway. There was a lot of media attention and everyone wanted to come and see the runway show. So we had 2 shows in a row. It was pretty interesting, you know, I never had any before and then I had 2 right in a row. There was a lot of kind of funny situation because we didn't have a time for a rehearsal. You know, fashion people, they never have time for anything, they're always late. And so we came and I'm already there on the stage having my long dress, and I'm like, okay, so now I'm gonna just push it to myself. And I took it the first time, I pushed it to myself, and it's moving. I'm happy about it because we've never tried it before, you know, like a real exam right there when a lot of people are watching, and some of the people are from American Walk watching at you. And then this tissue is in this, you know, some parts of the dress is in my other hand, and I'm like, okay, what am I gonna do with this? We never did a rehearsal, we never discussed. And I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna be doing like this. Just with the confidence on my face. And everyone was like, that was so beautiful. That was like, you've done it so many times. I had no idea what I'm gonna be doing. I felt like, okay, when you're on the stage and around 20 cameras are on you, everything what you do, you just do with the confidence. No matter if you have no idea. So on the next runway show, right after this one, I had some problems with the dress, so I started to push it and it didn't move. And I'm not sure what face expression I had, but people afterwards were saying like, oh, you were so into character, you were so dramatic. I'm like, oh my God, you have no idea how dramatic I was, because my dress wasn't moving. And the other models were going, and I remember how the designer said, okay, there are gonna be 15 girls, so you need to count, you know, how much dress you should take, so when so there's not gonna be a still dress on the floor when they're already left. And I'm taking the dress and I'm thinking, okay, how many girls already went? 3, 4, 5? But everything anyway went really great. I had a lot of interviews. And if the first Daily Mail article was kind of lucky coincidence, I would call it, then the second Daily Mail article was a lot of hard work. I was just calling to them every single day and saying, we have worldwide news. We made such a runway show. We're gonna send you very exclusive picture with a very exclusive video. And they bought it. And in the meaning they bought it, I mean they decided to write about it. So that's me and Fodor at the end, having a happy moment that everything went great. So there was the second Daily Mail article. And it did spread. It did spread not like the first time, because the first time it was like during just the first few days. Everyone read about it, a lot of people translated it into different languages, and that was all. But this time, right now I can say that around more than 60 countries around the world wrote about our runway show. It took some time because I was getting calls from all over the world. I had interviews on the phone with the New Zealand, with Mexico. I got a call from national TV in China because for some reason people in China really loved it and they felt like it's an amazing idea. So I felt a little bit weird because, again, after all that media attention, people were saying, so right now for sure, you're going to be getting calls from different brands and from the agencies. But again, there was a lot of media attention, but nothing was really coming out in terms of, I've worked with a few brands, like some local Ukrainian brands, but no modeling agency was still willing to work with us. So I decided to take a risk and go to New York City, because that's what I dreamt to be doing when I was 16 years old. I felt like, well, when you have a big dream, you have to go by yourself to New York City and try it, right? Well, right now I understand that if I've done it at the age of 16, I would just die probably somewhere there alone, hungry, in the cold. But when I was already 23, I guess it was still really hard, but I was prepared enough to give it a try. The story about New York, it's another huge story because I've spent there a month all by myself. I lived in Brooklyn in hostel with 3 other, I don't know why, but there were always guys in my room. And I was using the subway to travel around New York City. First, it was incredibly scary because, well, you've been in New York City, and if you've seen that subway, it's not the most pleasant place to be at. But I had such a huge passion for keep going and for making modeling not just a thing which was written in news once or twice. I really wanted to make it my profession and to prove, especially I really wanted to prove it to my father, that I can make it fashion, that I can make fashion my profession. Because, my parents, even though they were really supportive, they were still asking like, you're doing all of this, but that's not a real job. You're gonna leave it one day, right? And you're gonna start a real job. And I wanted to prove so badly that it can be a real job. So I was going to all of the different modeling agencies in New York City, calling all of them, having a meeting with photographers. I'll be able, by the way, I missed that part, but I'm just showing that a lot of different articles in many different languages wrote about the runway show. So we had one beautiful shoot in New York City, and I went to a lot. What's funny about business in New York City is that no one is really nice to you in terms of, like, if they know that it's not going to work, they won't spend more than 2 minutes on you. They're like, okay, so, model, we looked at your photos, okay, good, how old are you? 24, okay, so you're from Ukraine, right? Ukraine, do you have a work visa? Oh, you don't. Well, if you're gonna have, give us a call. That's basically was most of my conversation with the modeling agencies in New York. And then I realized that I was a little bit naive, thinking that I'll just be able to show up there saying, hey world, I'm ready, and the world's gonna be, oh sure, we're so welcome. Life in New York was difficult, and I was trying just, sometimes I feel that people in New York, all what they're doing is they're just trying to survive. That's how I felt, at least. Um, at that moment, right before my trip to New York, me and my manager Blake, we sent more than 300 letters to all of the agencies around the world. We weren't already choosing which countries. We thought like, whatever works. And of course we were getting rejections letters after rejection letters, and people were keep saying that the market isn't ready. Until when I was in New York, Blake gave me a call and he says, I've got one letter from the man, his name is Rajan. He's from India, and he says like they would like to sign a contract with you. They're a modeling agency. And I'm like, India? Seriously? Well, okay, let him send the contract. I was so sure it's a kind of a joke or this scammer guy or whatever. So I was like, okay, let him send the contract. So he sent the contract, we took a look. It looked okay, like a regular modeling contract. And then we had a chat, and Rajan said, I'm really serious about bringing you to India because we were the first modeling agency in India which brought Afro-American model here, and it was really successful. So I think we have a chance with you. So at the end of my trip to New York, even though I failed with all of the agencies there, I've got a contract, and I was going to, oh my God, India for 3 months. First I had to apply for documents and get a work visa. It was really funny because when I did apply, I remember how the consul from, I think the ambassador from India, he called me on the phone and he said like, oh, so you're a model and you're going to my country to work there. Could you please send me some links, some pictures of you? I'm like, yeah, sure. I did apply with all of the links and pictures. I'm like, why? And he was like, I just want to tell some of my colleagues that I worked with a celebrity and that I gave the visa to the celebrity. So I got my visa, and which is the funny fact is that I was the first model from Ukraine, just the first model of Ukraine from the last 2 years who got a work visa to India. And I went to India, and the major Indian news started to write about me. There was a few articles in Hindustan Times, and I also had one runway show on India Runway Week. That's one of the backstage from the shoot there. I had just a few shoots, and even though it was really interesting experience, and the story about India itself, it's another different story, like for another hour, which I'm not sure you're ready to listen today. If you're gonna have any questions, feel free to ask. But my story about my traveling in India it's something really, really big which happened in my life. It was interesting. It was exciting. I've seen there one of the best and one of the worst things. We worked with a few designers. We made a few campaigns, but I actually felt weird being just a model, because at that moment when I was signed with the modeling agency, I was just a model. I was just my work was just to show up at the right time with the right makeup and just doing my work, being in front of the camera. And I remember how all the time when they were organizing something, I couldn't stop myself from like, hey, I want to be part of it. I want to be organizing something. But now I was just a model, which I felt I always wanted. And I think that's when I realized that maybe, when you actually reach and your dreams come true, and you realize that maybe they don't really look already like what you wanted, and you don't really feel like doing this anymore. So when my trip to India was over, I came back to Ukraine, and I remember we were in conversation with my manager Blake, and we were thinking, so what's to do next? Because we already had a runway show, we already had a contract with a modeling agency, and are we ready to push forward, even though, again, in India, people also were saying that the market isn't ready yet. And for right now, we decided to make like a little pause for this. And I wouldn't say that I left it, but I decided, again, like a few years ago, that I guess all of my energy and passion right now I can put in something different, something meaningful, because my modeling career and everything what I was doing in fashion was always something very meaningful for me. When I worked with other models, I saw that they just go from casting to casting, they enjoy it, they're having fun, but it's not like a mission for them. That's why I always was very different, because the whole fashion world and the modeling, for me, that was the way to express my message, that even though it happened so that, you know, I'm in a wheelchair, I always wanted to live the life which I would live even if it didn't happen to me. And I knew that when I was a teenager, I would want to try to be a model. So if it happens so that I'm in a wheelchair, why I still can't just give it a try? And that's what I want for all the people, you know, be able to just ask yourself an honest question about what you want to do with your life, and try to give the answer without looking at your family, your friends, if any stereotypes, anything. Just try to be the most honest as you can be, because I think my story, why it was a success, why it even happened, because at some point of my life I was brave enough to ask, do you really want to try this? And the answer was yes, I really want to try it. And you know, I was that person who found my passion, and I felt so good about it, because everyone is usually saying that it's so important to life to find that passion. So my passion was to create that runway show, which a few pictures today you saw, and it did happen. And then I felt a little bit lost, because I didn't really know, okay, so what is my passion now? Because I've done something so huge, so big, something which looked incredibly impossible to create such a runway show in Kiev. And now I think that maybe the passion is not the answer, that what's really important is to keep having curiosity. Be curious about life. Be curious about what you can change in this world. Or be curious about, you know, just what's when you try something, try a lot of different areas, and then you will find one path which will turn you on so much that you will be able, as I was able, you know, just to go to another country all by yourself, just because you completely believe in your vision. What I never doubt, not for a single minute during the whole 3 years which I've spent in being a model, I never doubt that the girl in a wheelchair can be treated as a professional model if she's professional. That for one of the most important things which people needs to be treated at the workplace is how professional they are, and nothing else. Because when I was in India, my booker was getting calls, and they were like, we're so interested in working with her. And then they would, because they just saw my headshots, But then they would find out that I'm in a wheelchair, and they would say like, oh no, thanks, we're gonna give you a call later. And we just couldn't understand why. Because you could have thousands of pictures with a lot of different brands. If you don't want to show the wheelchair, just don't show it. But why? I still don't really have an answer for this question. Why is it still such a taboo in media, in fashion world, not just in Ukraine, all over the world? And I'm so happy and so grateful that I was lucky enough to meet open-minded people in Ukraine so we could make it here. And when I was getting, interviews, people were so fascinating that really you've done this show in Kiev, where usually people just follow trends, not to maybe like a trendsetters. So right now I'm in the moment of my life when I'm trying to find in new ways, and I'm curious. I realized that right now I'm more curious about social projects, and I'm really curious about movies. After one of that fashion video you saw, I felt like maybe I could do something more with that. Maybe I could try to bring something new, because there are a few characters which I would like to try in movies. And well, there is still no actress in a wheelchair in Ukraine, right? So there is still something which I could try for myself. And to sum up, I would like to get back to the girl I was when I was 13 years old. And right now, if I had a chance to talk to her and to tell her something, I guess I would just hug her really tight and said, there are amazing things are waiting for you ahead. But sometimes it's gonna be really difficult. It's not gonna work right from the beginning, and you would just have to be strong. But it's gonna work out at the end, and every time when something will work out, you would see that it totally worth it, and everything what you're doing and the life is totally worth living, and trying to be to give yourself the most honest answers, even though they might be scary, and it might be scary to follow your dream. I did lived following my dream, and I would tell you, it's not an easy path. It's not like, when people say, oh, I live my dream, it means it's so everyone, I don't know, just give you chocolate, it's some fun, fireworks, and everything works out. I'm sure it's not like that. But at the end of the day, you know that it's totally worth it, and that you do something what is very meaningful to you. So, thank you so much. If you have any questions. You don't have any questions? О. Да. Хорошо.
Дякую.